A couple years ago, a homeowner sent me this picture. Their shower was leaking onto their front porch. They already called out a plumber and a tile guy, and this repair was going to cost thousands. But when I showed up, it was clear that this leak had been misdiagnosed, which is why in this video, I'm going to show you common areas in your bathroom that leak, what you can do about it, and then at the end, we'll circle back to this story and show you how this leak was fixed for pennies on the dollar. Now, there's a few ways a toilet will leak, and I'm not talking about missing the spot, guys. If you see water pooling up on the base of the toilet at the floor, the wax ring might have gone bad. That's what connects the toilet to the flange. You can just wear out from old age. If this happens, it can be tricky to diagnose because building code often requires you to caulk the seam between the toilet and the floor. Now, not everyone will do this, and some will leave a gap in the back to hopefully allow some of that water to leak out. Others are unlucky enough to find that leak some other way, but it's something to be mindful of, and you have to replace the wax ring every time you lift up and replace that toilet. Another common leak, and this can get you into trouble, is that fill valve and float inside the toilet. If that gets stuck for some reason, which it can get finicky over the years, the toilet will just run, and that'll run up your bill, which I talk about on my home maintenance checklist. There's things to watch out for when you go on vacation, and a runny toilet is one you're going to be sorry about. Another one that happens less common, it's one that people kind of ignore and let just go over the years, is a fill valve that leaks a little bit. So historically, people would use a compression fitting there on the stub, and that's great, but they still go bad over time. And it's easy enough to remove that compression fitting. Do not cut the stub out. And more recently, you'll see people put shark bite fittings on there, which most licensed plumbers are no fans of shark bite. But whether you like them or not, they can potentially leak. Fortunately, those are removable as well. Now, there's a couple common leaks you'll see around a sink. One is the P-trap, which DIYers in particular have a tricky time with. The fitting can be a little finicky, but if you have to glue it, you're not doing it right. As a general rule of thumb, if it's overly complicated, you're probably not doing it right. Always simple, never easy. That's the motto of remodel school, which you'll see a lot in my videos on this page. Now, another problem that comes about on the sink over time is the faucet filter. It can build up grime and scale, and it can either spray or drip as a result. But fortunately, it's usually an easy fix, just a matter of removing it, cleaning it out, and then screwing it back in. Now, there's a couple types of vents that you may or may not have in your bathroom, and they can leak in similar ways. Some people have an air conditioning unit in their attic in an unconditioned space, so you have very hot air surrounding that cold air conditioning duct. And if there's a leak in the AC duct, condensation can form and drip down through the vent cover. And you'll see that with signs of rust on the vent cover. Similarly, this can happen with your exhaust fan as it sucks up hot, humid air through a cold attic, particularly in a freezing climate. If there's a leak in that line, you can form condensation in the opposite direction. If you do have an AC unit in the attic, by the way, I saw this happen once where the AC condenser drain line sprung a leak. Even though it was a copper pipe, just a little pinhole leak started leaking through the garage. So always be mindful of where your water sources are. It's not always limited to just the bathroom. Now, how about your shower and tub leaks? Well, if your shower head is leaking, that could be an easy fix because you're only supposed to hand tighten that. But if you can't get it tight enough and it's still leaking, you can use some Teflon tape. And a pro tip is to put the Teflon tape on clockwise. If you put it on counterclockwise, it's just going to scrunch up and not work properly. Now, if your leak is coming from inside the wall, you probably have a bigger issue on your hands. I actually had a mixing valve leak on me before I even had the chance to put the tile back on the wall, so I got lucky. But a way people handle this is they like to have an access hatch, if possible, to deal with the mixing valve. Worst case scenario, this mixing valve is on an exterior wall in a freezing climate, and people do this. Water stops when you stop the shower valve, it's filled up in that line between the shower head and the mixing valve. It can just freeze and burst the pipe, and then you got big problems on your hands. Another common leak you're going to see in showers and tubs is on the curb side. Um, Typically the inside corner, but the outside corner as well will show signs of water damage. This could even be waterproofed properly, but might just be that people didn't shut the shower curtain all the way over the years and water's kind of dripping and collecting there. It's always best practice to just cut out those corners when you replace the tub or shower because there probably is some mold back there anyways. Um, but how can you tell the difference between a pan leaking or a drain? Well, you can do a pan test by plugging the drain. They sell simple drain plugs, and you just let that pan sit overnight. Um, mark the water level, and if your pan holds, well, then the last step is to check the drain. And that brings us to our homeowner misdiagnosed leak. So the plumber said to regrout the shower, and I actually just made a video on how to clean and regrout your shower if you're interested. But grout isn't intended to be waterproof. And even if you go with an epoxy grout that is waterproof, the point of a shower waterproofing system is that the pan is waterproof. Water gets beneath the tile on purpose and then flows to the drain. So that really wasn't the issue here, and that might have been an inexperienced plumber. I think most plumbers wouldn't have said that. But when the tile guy showed up, who probably knew that the tile wasn't, the grout wasn't an issue, he said, "Hey, you got to rip this all out." And one particular challenge the homeowner had was they had heated floors, and that was running through the bathroom floor as well as the shower. And you can't splice those lines. You can't just cut off just the shower part and replace it. You have to rip up all of that. So this was becoming a very big issue. And you can see how the tile guy wasn't necessarily aware of the drain, but the way that you test something like this, Occam's razor, you're just looking for the simplest explanation. And so the way I started out with was just a drain test. I plugged the drain up and ran each of the fixtures um, to see if there was a leak, and there was no leak. And the way we tested this is actually pulled off some of the deck boards so I could witness this. When I put water down the shower drain, it was in fact leaking. What it turned out was the little gasket for that press-on drain had just dried out. So they had gone on vacation and that dried out. And this is actually another type of leak that you can run into. If water is supposed to be in that P-trap all the time, and when it does dry out, it can actually leak sewer gases into your house. Something to be mindful of. But that's all they needed. I was able to put the deck boards back on and save them this big bill. And that's why you follow Remodel School. I'm here to help you make informed choices for every room in your house. So please like this video and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my presence here. I've got a big presence on social media, ton of experience. I put all that experience into my home remodeling guide, so check that out as well.